Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So you may remember on Friday we talked about Intel going to build a giant chip manufacturing plant in the middle of Ohio, somewhere near Columbus. New Albany, I guess, is the name of the town where they're going to build this massive. And look, we need it. We desperately needed this. But on Friday, the president had the Intel head and a number of senators and representatives talking about this new $20 billion plant. And Senator Sherrod Brown, he tweeted out, "Today we're finally burying the term Rust Belt." And I hope that's true, because as a kid growing up in Cleveland, I remember all of those manufacturing jobs. I remember when the mills were going and the factories were moving and all of the middle-class jobs, the middle-class union jobs that the men and women of that city had. And I remember it going away. The hope is that we rebuild that prosperous working class. And here to share some thoughts on it, are we really burying the term Rust Belt? I've asked Ohio Senator Sherrod Brown to come talk with us. Senator, thanks for taking time for us.
Of course, glad to. Look forward to it.
So I'm looking at this, this Rust Belt term. Are we really? Are we going to rebuild the Midwest? Are we going to rebuild that manufacturing prowess? Are we going to allow Trenton to keep the bridge that says America makes, the world takes?
Well, we're going to, yeah, absolutely. And it's not just, I objected to the term Rust Belt years ago, and have told ad nauseum reporters, at least ask them to stop using it, because our manufacturing processes are no longer traditionally what they were. I mean, we're never going to bring back the hundreds of thousands, millions of jobs in this state, blue collar jobs that paid a middle class, or at least a wage approaching middle class. And I grew up walking the halls at Johnny Appleseed Junior High and Mansfield Senior High School in Mansfield, an hour south of Cleveland. I grew up with kids whose dads, mostly dads, sometimes moms, were auto workers at Fisher Body, steel workers at Empire Detroit, rubber workers at Mansfield Tire, machinists at Ohio Brass. Their parents were building trades people that worked in those plants and did the kind of between retooling of the plants and built the plants and all that. So we're not ever going to have quite that again. But with this, we've also seen far too many young people leave our state. And one of the exciting things about Intel coming in is, first of all, 5,000 jobs that are in for 10 years, building trades jobs. They have promised me they're going to all be union, and I'm going to watch them and make sure of that. Then there's going to be thousands of jobs in manufacturing for as long as these manufacturing jobs go. I don't know, a decade, two decades, 3 decades, 4 decades. I mean, Intel's got plants in other states that have been there 30 and 40 years. So I'm optimistic that way. And we're going to see more young people want to stay in the state. These are going to be good paying jobs. We've seen manufacturing jobs not just decrease, we've seen the wages flatten or worse. And my goal, and more than anything, is get people's wages higher, because we've seen executive compensation skyrocket. We've seen stock prices go up, and wages, as you know, Rick, have stayed flat. So that's kind of where I start on all this.
Yeah, I'm thrilled to see finally a manufacturing plant being built here. And look, nobody thinks we're going to go back to the old days. We're not getting the manufacturing jobs that have already been lost. We're not getting them back. But how about not losing the future jobs? And these, I think the pandemic has pointed out, we really need to start thinking about strategic investments in manufacturing, things that are going to strengthen our supply chains, strengthen our national security, and this being the first part of it. Because we're now seeing people who can't buy cars, can't get the things that we need because, well, the smart chips that make our smartphones smart and our smart cars smart, we don't have enough of them.
Yeah, we don't. And we were... as recently as, I believe, 1990, the U.S. made 30% of the chips of the semiconductors that were made in the world were made in the United States. That number is 9 now. Went from 30% to 9%, mostly East Asia, mostly China. Taiwan is the leader, and South Korea. But there's a lot of things we should be doing. We're not. So it's preserving what we have, and we understand. I mean, I know you know this because we've talked. It was government at the behest of very effective corporations lobbying Congress to pass NAFTA, to pass PNTR with China, to set up, to give essentially tax breaks to move overseas. So we saw these companies that you talk about in Garfield Heights or Cleveland or the West Side, Lorraine. We saw those plants shut down and move to China or move to Mexico because of bad government policy lobbied by corporate interests. So first of all, we write that. And that's one of the things about the supply chain that's the most aggravating. The reason the supply chain is so hard to fix is it's stranded all over the world because we have seen so many of these companies move overseas. If they were all in the United States or mostly here, it'd be much easier to fix this supply chain. We made somebody told me that with Intel, we made 8 million fewer cars last year than projected. And I think we were projecting 18 or 19 million. So, and that was almost entirely because of the chip shortage, and inflation in auto sales is one third of all the inflation is in autos. So if that had not fallen apart, this problem of inflation would be much more manageable than it is now.
Yeah, but ultimately, for me, it's about, something I've been talking about for years. All during the push for NAFTA, all during the push for these free trade agreements. Of if you decentralize our manufacturing prowess, if you do away with our ability to produce the things we need in times of crisis, we're not going to have them. And this played out during the pandemic, which again is why I'm thrilled that Joe Biden is finally, taking that to heart and to mind and moving forward on it. One of the things that is concerning to me is I was reading some Ohio media on Friday and over the weekend, where people were doing backflips to give credit to the Republican governor in Ohio and to the legislature and to the economic development slush fund that they've got. Almost no mention of the fact that this is an admission. This is a policy that this administration is moving forward on to reshore manufacturing and the billions of dollars that are going to be put in to bringing some of this stuff here.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And the other side of that coin, number one, Biden is really leading on this. The other side of that coin is the failure of Ohio state government for 2 decades to stop the bleeding. I mean, we're a state. I mean, we know about the corruption in this state. It's not just First Energy, the Speaker of the House, getting a $60 million bribe. It's also the governor appointing these First Energy executives in different jobs. It was Econ and the CoinGate and all the other corruption. And this government has as a result, state government has, people pay higher utility bills as a result of this corruption. People see their schools underfunded as a result of this corruption. They see public health unprepared for the opioid crisis or for obviously for the pandemic. So the state government has failed this state for a quarter of a century. And now they're taking laps because of the attraction of one company that President Biden and the Department of Commerce helped on significantly.
Yeah, but here's my question. I'm looking at, I'm remembering back during the former guy's administration, we had the big to-do about Foxconn and the billions of dollars that were going to be handed off to Foxconn to create jobs, and none of it happened. There are a couple of people there, but it never came to fruition. Are we concerned that this is possibly going to follow that, or do we feel better about this deal?
Foxconn never had the credibility. First of all, it's not an American company with a storied past. Second, it didn't have nearly the seriousness. I mean, I'm not an expert in Foxconn. I watched it, but I wasn't as intricately involved as I am in this. Second, you had a Wisconsin governor that was kind of a flim-flam man, and you never really had the focus in the gravitas that this one does. The CEO was there; his reputation's on the line for this. I don't think I think there is a possibility it won't be $100 billion; it'll be $20 billion instead of $100 billion investment. It's up to us to make sure that 20 turns into the 100 that he said he would like it to. But that really is up to the state and local communities, and it's up to all of us performing. And I'm optimistic about it. And I think this is going to be a change, and it's going to change it's going to change a lot of manufacturing now, because it's not just their investment, as you know, Rick. It's the other companies that feed into this. And because of the technology, I think you're going to see a lot more young people come to Ohio, and a lot higher percentage of our young people want to stay here and not get jobs necessarily at Intel, of course, but get jobs at ancillary businesses or just a different environment in the state. And one of the things we're doing to kind of help fix this is, and we started this 7 or 8 years ago, we set up these manufacturing camps. We've done about 100 of them now. They're a camp that kids from 8th grade to 10th grade, I think it's fifth to ninth grade. I'm sorry, kids that are going and spending a day at different manufacturing plants in their community. 10 or 12 kids in each camp, really kind of getting a taste of what manufacturing could be. And I think we're going to see a resurgence because of that. They might want to be a welder. They might want to be an engineer. They might want to work a line in a plant after seeing what it can actually do when they make stuff.
Yeah, we most certainly need to invest heavily in vocational education and getting people who are capable of taking raw materials and actually turning them into something. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show. We're here with Ohio Senator Sherrod Brown talking about the Intel deal, $20 billion semiconductor manufacturing facility they're going to be building in Ohio over the next couple of years. Here's the thing, Senator, I keep coming back to our trade policies, and we do need to have some kind of overall industrial policy. If you look at what China's done, they put it out in paper. You got the China 2025 plan. They want to take over all of the high tech stuff, robotics, aviation, pharmaceuticals. They're saying it, and they're investing heavily in it. I see us trying, and I'm thrilled with the administration for moving this. But we need to have the full legislation and a full court press on this. Is there something being done to move us in that direction?
Well, there certainly was this year, and we have, frankly, one senator. Well, part of that, Rick, is if you remember 4 years ago, we thought we were on the precipice of doing $1 trillion to $1.5 trillion infrastructure package, and then President Trump changed his mind and did a huge tax cut that went to where literally 70% of the tax cut went to the richest 1%. So included in that was sort of a get out of jail free card for companies, or that's not really the way to say it, more of a 50% off coupon for companies to move overseas. So we've got to fix our tax policy. We have one Democratic senator that stood in the way of that. She had voted against the Trump tax cuts. Now, for whatever reason, she thinks they aren't that bad. So to do this right, we've got to scale back and repeal a number of his tax policies that send jobs overseas. So we are, in a big way, this is the first president that's really been in the right place on trade issues in my lifetime. And Biden really is doing the right things on trade. We also have to do the right things on tax policy to make the U.S. the most attractive place to do business for an American company and maybe a foreign company wanting to come here.
Yeah, but also we've got to tighten up our trade policies. I'm a big fan of the tariffs. I know I took a lot of heat from my liberal friends when Trump put the tariffs in place. I had been calling for those for a long time. We also need to track down people who are trying to avoid those by going through third-party countries to avoid them. We've got to put our foot down and be a lot more enforcing of our rules. I mean, if you're going to play in the game, you got to play by the rules.
Yeah, that's right. And we've got, some of those selective tariff policies work. I wrote a whole book about trade called The Myths of Free Trade. And I led the opposition among the freshman class in 1993, my first year in the Senate, to NAFTA, and then led the opposition overall to the PNTR with China. I mean, I know what these trade agreements have done. I'd never voted for a trade agreement in my whole career at that point. And I know we have a U.S. trade rep now that actually understands American manufacturing and understands our national interest. And fundamentally, trade policy should be a policy derived sort of through the eyes, putting workers at the center. If trade policy is about workers, you don't pass stupid trade agreements. These trade policies about helping corporations move overseas, save money, sell their products back into the United States, avoid environmental regulations, undermine worker safety for workers. And so we know what to do now, and we're starting to do that now. We've got to fix the tax policy too.
Yeah, last line of questioning I've got for you. We're seeing an awful lot of investment going on, especially in Ohio, Michigan. Michigan, what, a $7 billion that General Motors is saying they're going to invest in 4 facilities there, and a lot of it centers around getting these chips to those manufacturers. But I keep coming back to I want to make sure that those are good union jobs. I know in the infrastructure bill, prevailing wage laws were still in place. Is there a way to say, hey, if we're investing federal money in rebuilding and reshoring manufacturing, is there a way to make sure that those jobs in building, even in the private sector, these facilities, that those are union jobs as well? Is there a way to do that?
Yeah. Yep. Well, first of all, you start with this, that we have in this infrastructure bill, and Tammy Baldwin from Wisconsin and I wrote these provisions. In this infrastructure bill, no more Bay Bridges in Northern California made with Chinese steel. I mean, if you're gonna get tax dollars, you're gonna hire American workers. And with that is an intensive campaign to make sure these are union jobs. When I was talking to Intel when they came to town east of Columbus, and we were in Newark at the time, when I was talking to them the other day, I said to them, I said, I'm watching, these need to be union jobs in the building trades leading up to the 10 years of 5,000 building trades jobs and in manufacturing. And we're going to keep watching them, make sure these are union jobs. Our country, I mean, I know what union jobs did with my town growing up. It gave a whole lot of families real security, real family security and wages and benefits, and even in the schedule that you have some control over it. So we keep fighting for that, and any of these new manufacturers, we're doing everything we can.
Yeah, I tell the story all the time. I grew up in a housing project on the west side of Cleveland, and the people that I saw get better and do better got those union jobs at the Ford plant on Brook Park, or the Chevy plant, or one of those feeder plants that fed into those, where they had good wages and good benefits. Little things like food at the end of the month, little things like a secondhand bike for kids, and eventually move out of the projects altogether. So for me, the idea of union job, better life, inculcated in my mind from childhood, and I want to make sure that other workers have that opportunity. But Senator, I appreciate you taking some time for us. Great talking with you. I hope you'll come back again real soon.
We will. Good deal. Thanks, Rick.
Appreciate your time. Ohio Senator Sherrod Brown. Love to hear your thoughts. You can email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. If you missed any of the program, make sure you download the podcast. Get the podcast. Share it with your friends. thericksmithshow.com. Quick break. Right back after this. Stick around. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show. We're working people. Come to talk.